All right, Twin Cities Startup Week, how are we doing today? Oh, come on, give me some more. How are we doing today? All right, all right. I gotta say, there's nothing quite like fall in Minnesota. You know, it is beautiful. You know, actually, I've been waiting for a time to bust this out of the closet. All through summer, I saw it pass by, like, not yet. Oh, it's still too hot. But here, got to break it out for the first time. So thank you so much for being here. And, you know, I just feel like picking apples, you know? So today, we're going to talk about, for the next hour or so, creating an irresistible consumer product. You know, we'll get into what that means in a little bit. Before we start, is there anybody who works on a consumer product? Oh, let's get you some clout. Please share a little bit about your business. Yeah, oh, no, just stand up. Tell them about it.
How much do you have time?
Just a 20-second pitch.
There you go. Hi, I'm Schou. I'm the founder and CEO of Moidl, plant-based instant noodles. Better for you. There's everything in one. Convenient, healthy, tasty. Everything in one. You don't have to choose in between. So go check out moidl.com and use the promo code happiness to get 15% off.
There we go.
Thank you.
Woo! Anybody else real fast? Anybody else in a consumer product? Where was that? Right there?
Yeah. My name is Nicholas Book. I'm an inventor of Water Whisk. It's a device that converts a used carbonated soft drink bottle, think of a Coke bottle, you put it on, fill the bottle up with water, spike it in the ground, and it will last for up to 8 weeks. So when you go away for vacation, or if you're just really bad at growing plants, like me.
There we go. Give a round for him. So what we're going to be talking about over the next hour or so is how do you move a consumer product from something that is just a thing on a shelf, like a widget, to something a little bit more. Something that consumers love irrationally, you know, logic-defying brand affinity. And in order to do that, we have an amazing panel of experts with us. So I'll introduce him here. First off, we have Joe Moidl. He is a VP of Innovation, Technology, and Quality at General Mills. He has launched some of the largest consumer products in food over his tenure here. So please give it up for Joe. Joe's going to be sharing a little bit of the big launch. What does that look like? And next, we're going to introduce Bella Lamb. Please come out, co-founder of Coconut Whisk. Bella's going to give us the flip side, starting out a little bit smaller, not yet big, but we believe that she's going to get there. And how do you go with less resources? How do you scale a business? Next up, we're going to do a little bit of a mishmash of the two. Brittany Schou, please come on up. Brittany is a co-founder on our Good Measure team. It is an internal venture studio within General Mills, so it's an internal startup within a big company, so a little bit of a mishmash of the two. Then finally, we have the one and only Matt Thell. He is an innovation guru. Here we go. Matt, welcome to the stage. He is an innovation guru, an expert on tools, process, so if you have any questions, or global, he has a ton of experience in that place. So if you have any questions, we'll have some time at the end for you to ask. And with that, we'll get started, all right? We're gonna butter him up. We're gonna give him some softballs here. So introduce yourself, name, what you do, a little bit more than what I shared, and then a consumer product that you think is irresistible and why. I'll start us off, and then I'll pass it to you, Brittany. So first off, I'm Johnny Tran. I'm the managing director of 301 Inc. Pleased to meet you all. So in a phrase, my mission is to help make the food system work for tomorrow's family starting today, using General Mills as capital to help drive that change. If you're interested in hearing what that means or what that looks like, feel free to reach out afterwards. Happy to chat. A consumer product that I think is irresistible is Siete Leguas Tequila. It's craft made It is still stone ground, still grow their own agave, and it's actually the original Patron formula. After Patron got too big, they went to a macro distillery, and it's the original recipe, actually. So not too expensive either. So if you like it, check it out. Brittany.
I'm Brittany Schou. I'm the general manager and co-founder of Good Measure, and we are setting on a mission to be the #1 blood sugar-friendly food company. And the product that I find irresistible, I'm actually going to go to the tech space, and it's a bio-wearable company called Levels Health. And they are in the business of blood sugar regulation for wellness. And the reason I find this company so irresistible is because they are consumer obsessed. And they really want to create this personalized experience. And they've done such a thoughtful way of integrating everything from their app to their blog to their devices, their continuous glucose monitors. And the way that I found them was actually starting my journey of what blood sugar regulation looked like. And our whole team wore their CGMs on our arms. And many of us, were lucky to have never had to do that before. And the unboxing experience, the app performance, the way that it all, melted together, they start with education first. And it made us feel completely safe and comfortable. And they've just been really thoughtful to lead with education and not necessarily have a call to action to even purchase their product. They had a podcast for 2 years before they had a marketable product.
Wow, amazing. Bella, please.
Sure, yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Bella Lamb. I'm one of the founders of Coconut Whisk. We're a mission-driven vegan and gluten-free food company that specializes in breakfast and baking mixes. So think pancakes, cookies, waffles, and the other question was consumer product, right?
That you think is irresistible.
Okay, so a current one that I'm pretty obsessed with right now is a digitally native product called Oat House. The founder is Ali Bonar, and she is just incredible right now in the space. She really leads with valuable content and not being afraid to be vulnerable to connect with her audience. And I really just love her branding and how she is really able to build community. So that's one of the products and the brands that I'm loving.
Awesome. Matt, please.
Hi, Matt Thell. I am with the iSquad at General Mills. We're an internal think tank, strategic consultancy, solver of problems, small group of us, about 8 or so, and we basically help out wherever there are interesting topics and things where the solution is unclear. Irresistible product.
That's right.
I'm going to take you literally and say something that I literally cannot resist. Boring answer, hopefully interesting rationale. So Cheetos. Okay, boring answer. But when you think about it, like, and I'm going to break it down kind of academically. So humans have impulses, right? We have all these different impulses, and there's tons of barriers to impulse. And I think they do a really good job of like eliminating those barriers, right? Easy price point, they're available everywhere, different sizes. Salt, fat, sugar, like physiologically, we come from like millennia of being in a calorie deficit, and so we need to get that. Do a really good job there. Burnout proof, right? You can keep on going back to it. It doesn't get old. And then the fingers, right? It leaves the residue, and so you have like that repeated ritual that like kind of just reinforces the consumption at the end. So to me, that kind of makes it irresistible.
Awesome. Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Moidl. I currently lead our R&D organization for morning foods at General Mills, which includes our cereal and our dairy business. For me, irresistibility is about integration into one's life. It's something that I can't live without, and so it's not a sexy answer, but my Keurig machine, I would be lost without it. It solves a big problem for me in a way that is unique and different than others in the market, so that's my irresistible product. I started my career at Frito-Lay, and I called my dad, and and we were talking, and he's like, Joe, can you talk to the guys who make Cheetos? Because like they gotta fix that cheese problem on your fingers, because I can't. So I went and I talked to the Cheetos people, and they're like, you don't get it. Like that is part of the ritual, the essence of the brand. It's something that makes it unique and different and creates interactivity with the product. So anyway.
Desire is never rational.
You are right.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. One more softball, and then what we're going to do is hop into a little bit of a case study with each of you. But let's help define what makes a product irresistible at a top level. Go ahead, Brittany.
Yeah, I think if a brand has a soul, you will know. and you will find it irresistible. And what I mean by having a soul is that it will be sensory. You will be able to taste it, see it, feel it, smell it, and you will have a personal and reaction to that, and it will imprint on you.
All right.
Go ahead, Bella.
Let's see. I would say what makes a brand irresistible is first being really unique. So you're solving a problem, big or small, and it's doing something a little different, right? And speaking to the audience in a way that hasn't been spoken to them before. And then the second thing is you're really surprising and delighting them with the value you're adding. Like they think they're just getting a pancake mix, but no, they're getting a pancake mix and really amazing customer service and a curated box and a community behind it. So I think that's what speaks to me when it comes to a brand that's unique and irresistible.
I feel like I gave away my second answer with my first answer, so we'll see what I can do here. All right, I'll touch more on the idea of elimination of barriers, right? So again, barriers to impulse, like there's lots of things that are gonna prevent you from doing something, the things that allow you to resist. So like things that, metaphorically leave little breadcrumbs that help you find it and get to it. That's kind of like part of the journey. Things that you think about where they moved things in convenience stores that were previously in the back to the front and put them in coolers because a barrier is people trying to get to the back of the store and that door. So things like that. Anything that removes a barrier to acting upon a natural impulse, I'd say, is something that makes it irresistible.
Love it. Joe?
For me, Bella took my answer, so I totally agree. I think it is about, for me anyway, it's about solving a very important problem in a unique and different way that nobody else can, that creates that. I would maybe add one more thing onto it. The way I think about it is any product that you routinize into your life, you integrate it into your life in a meaningful way is irresistible. So it does the job in such a way that incorporates it into your daily habits or weekly habits.
I love it. I love it. The funny thing about brands is that they kind of live in this weird space. It's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner, right? You get a shot of dopamine every time you interact with a brand that you love and that is familiar with you. It lights it up. So, for me, I love those canned, cranberry sauces. If anybody tries to put real cranberries, not that Jell-O slice, I'm not messing around with it. Same thing with green bean casserole. Put nuts in there, I'm not for it. Brands and businesses play very much in that same type of way. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to go through a case study with each of the folks here that we have up on the panel. We're going to start big. Joe, you have worked on one of the largest product launches in CPG food in We by Yoplait. I'd love for you to be able to share us, bring that story a little bit to life for us and how you got to an irresistible product which became a $100 million business.
Yeah, it started about 6 years ago, and actually it started longer than that. If you follow General Mills and you follow our yogurt business, we have struggled with Greek, and our market share has been in decline since Greek launched. So Chobani launched Greek 10, 15 years ago now, and so we were in the space of we need to disrupt ourselves. We need to reinvent our yogurt business and do it in a contemporary way that will resonate with today's consumers. And so our president at the time gave us a challenge of creating a $300 million business and gave us 6 weeks to do it. And so with Matt's team, and Matt, I think you might have been involved in that at some point, we had coaches and guides, and we went through build, measure, learn loops and in an agile kind of way with the goal of creating something simple, something not with a lot of ingredients that would resonate with today's consumers. And what we found was we started, we came up with hundreds of concepts, talked to thousands of consumers. And in order to go forward, we looked back. We found this concept in Europe, which was yogurt in a glass jar, made cup set, very traditional style. We had a small business in Europe, and we thought, okay, well, maybe that's contemporary, going back to the roots. And we started to show it to consumers. And in a nutshell, what made that thing unique was that it delivered on an emotional job versus a physical one. And so, yep, it had to be simple. Yep, it had to be creamy. Yep, it had a taste great. But putting it in that glass jar made it a me moment. It created a calm bubble for the user, and it created an experience for the consumer that was different than anything that we had anticipated. And so that's kind of the journey. I'll tell you that at one point you can see how a big company might come in to the equation and say, well, how do we reduce the cost? And we looked, at how we might replace the glass with something we were calling Glastic. Plastic that looks like glass. And our president at the time, and I thank him forever for this, but he taught me, he's like, you guys can't compromise. You absolutely can't compromise. We'll figure out a way. If the consumers value it, we'll find a way to charge it and make the margins that we need. But whatever you do, don't compromise. And at a big company, there's always opportunities where compromise will creep into a project. And so that's one of the lessons I learned during the journey is don't ever compromise. Deliver what consumers want, and they will reward you for it.
Joe, talk us through a little bit of the big pivotal moments that got you to an Irresistible product. So it sounded like there was a couple big moments where you're like, oh, there's this thing in Europe, we're going to cup set it, and then there was also the glass, right? And each one of those you had to not compromise, and you had to do it in the perfect way to make it irresistible. Could you talk us through how did that process go? How did you get the conviction to make all the decisions you did?
It's a loaded question. There were lots of moments, One of the first moments I remember, we had a U.S.-based team, and we have a team based in France, and the U.S.-based team connected with the French team and said, tell us the most authentic yogurt. They're like, oh, yeah, we have it. It's this glass jar product. It's very small. We sell it in hotels, but that's how yogurt was initially commercialized, when it first became a commercial product. And so, I think this experience of always looking on the outside for inspiration, for stimulation, for knowledge and insights, that was one of the first moments when we discovered and we went out and asked somebody to help us solve the problem. The second was when we showed consumers.
Oh, yeah.
We had hundreds of concepts. We showed them the product in the glass jar, and there was just something unique and special. It was hard to put your finger on it, but the smiles that consumers would give you. It's a solution that they had never seen solved before in this unique way, and it really elevated what we were focused on at the time was more product attributes. It really caused us to think about the emotional job that this product was doing, and that was kind of a pivot for us. And the last one was the capital conversation of how much are we willing to invest, and is the idea big enough? And typically in a big company, you go through lots of qualitative and quantitative tests to assess size of prize, to determine whether the capital investment is going to pay off and it's going to have a good return on investment. And we didn't do one test on we. Our president leaned in. It was millions and millions and millions of dollars based on the conviction of the team and the learnings that the team had generated by getting really, really close to consumers. So that was
I love it.
If we would have had to prove the capital for this, I don't know that it ever would have happened. It was leadership and conviction.
That irrational capital decision.
It was totally irrational. So anyway.
One last question for you, Joe. At what point did you really know that you had something on your hands, that it wasn't just the ambition of it being a $100 million business, that you're like, oh, this is actually going to be a $100 million business?
I think the first moment was with consumers, always. The second moment was with retailers. When we started to show this to retailers, they were committed to helping us make it big. They were like, okay, what kind of promotions do we need? What kind of distribution do you want? How do we, they were really, really excited about it because they saw something different and unique. And, retailers see a ton of innovation. So they can spot something pretty quickly. And so just the feedback we were getting from retailers was really powerful. And then as we started to do the marketing campaign, we marketed through influencers. And there was a tremendous amount of excitement from influencers and people that wanted to help us promote the product. So it's those three things that kind of led us to believe that we had something.
Amazing. And so you felt that pull from the entire chain, from retailers to consumers and from the internal team. Very cool.
I will tell you this, though, that probably the most important part of that project was the team's conviction that they got by getting close to consumers and really understanding the problem they're solving and the job that this product is doing, because we're trying to bring lots of tough innovation to bear every day, and tell my team, our job is to do the really hard to do. And the really hard to do has lots of barriers along the way. And if a team doesn't have conviction, they'll get stopped. And so this, the conviction the team had was really, really important.
Very cool. Thank you, Joe. Now, speaking of conviction, we're going to hop to our second case. Bella, there's nothing quite like conviction, playing with someone else's dollars versus putting your own career, your own dollars on the line. Bella, why don't we hop to you and talk through what was it like to start Coconut Whisk, and tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. So we did not have millions of dollars in funding, I wish. So we really did everything truly from scratch. And so it kind of, long story short, started it in 2018 in my college apartment with my life partner, now business partner and life partner. And it was really because I was vegan and gluten-free at the time, and I didn't see the product I was looking for. So vegan, gluten-free, better for you, especially for breakfast and baking mixes. And so that was like the initial thing that inspired me to create what I wanted to create. And when it comes to products, I feel like it's all about feeling, and it's all about the emotion that elicits. And so there was a moment when the idea really came to fruition. It was when my partner was making this cookie mix we got gifted, and I don't tell this story a lot, but he was making it, and I was like watching him, and he was just so at peace, present, mindful, and we were like stressed out college kids at the time, and so seeing him do that was just like really beautiful. And I was really looking forward to like sharing the cookies with him, and then realizing that I couldn't have it because it wasn't vegan or gluten-free. So that was like, I didn't want that feeling of being left out again, and I knew that I wasn't the only one, and so that's what really like inspired me to create Coconut Whisk. And in the beginning, it was really us just making the product with what we had. So went online to buy some craft paper bags, made some homemade stickers at home, slapped them on the front, and created nutrition labels on the internet, and made everything in our 400 square foot apartment. And
wow.
And just like, we every single weekend after school and after work, we would go to the farmer's market and sample it and let people try it out and hear the feedback, because we knew we aren't food scientists, so we knew that this is just the prototype. And so being really curious about what the consumer had to say, and also being a consumer myself, like I knew like kind of what the branding was, what I wanted the branding to look like, and what I wanted it to speak. So just kind of use the customer revenue, use my part-time job income, and did a few business competitions and got some grants to really help us continue to evolve and scale. And so that's kind of how we got started in the beginning.
Very cool. And so at what point during that, making it in a 400 square feet apartment, and also I would say doing a business with your significant other, oh my God, wow, you're way braver than I am for doing it. At what point did you get the conviction, kind of like Joe was saying, to take a swing at this thing? At what point did you feel like your product was irresistible enough to really go after it?
Yeah, so it was in the beginning just for fun, to be honest. Like I was studying public health at the time, and I was in this internship for corporate wellness, and there was just something like missing for me. I felt like I wasn't really fulfilled, and I was really attuned to that, and so I took that problem and I wanted to apply myself somewhere else, and so I wanted to create a personal project, a passion project, and that was Coconut Whisk. And in the beginning, the conviction was me just wanting to have this like creative outlet. That was it. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted this creative outlet, and I saw like there was this little solution that I can provide to the market. I went to school in Mankato, and there was zero like vegan, gluten-free, allergen-friendly options. So just wanting to like do something, right? Contribute. And then in the beginning, we also donated like 15% to the animal shelters. So that was like my way of, doing my charity and holding myself accountable to that. And so in the beginning, it was that conviction of I want something of my own, and I want to just have something where I can express myself and just kind of see it through. And then as we went, we realized that it wasn't just for us; it was for like our customers. Like we had people literally come up to us at farmers markets, and they would cry, or they would just be so happy, like that we have products that they can have. So that was like really the point where I realized that we did have something pretty special, and just continued forward after that.
Yeah, you were selling more than baking mix. You were selling inclusion. in a lot of
Yes,
ways.
yeah, and like this experience and this feeling of let's slow down, like let's take a break together, and like let's encourage, the feeling of joy and mindfulness. So.
A couple of follow-ups. Bella, I think your branding is exceptional. I think it is really has a soul to it. Could you talk us through how you got to a brand articulation that has so much personality?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, when we worked with our design team, it was really understanding the feeling. Again, it's like really about feeling, like the energy you want to give out, right? Like we're not, like personally, I love color. I love big, bold colors. I like pastel colors. And it was just like looking, from a consumer perspective, and the consumer I was trying to speak to, which was, someone my age, going to college, who wanted just more fun in their life, but not in a way that's like fun, like let's go party. It's like fun as in like let's stay home and bake. Like that was my version of fun. And so it's like, that was really how we got to our branding, was like understanding the feeling and like understanding what I wanted, and yeah, building from there.
Yeah, some people have baking mixes, others tequila,
Exactly,
tomato,
exactly.
tomato.
Yep, you got it.
Last question for you, Bella. You also have a storefront on the Nicollet Mall. Could you talk to us about that, the decision to open that up, and how you got there?
Sure. So a little context with a storefront. So it's a vegan and gluten-free bubble tea shop that features our pancake mix. So we have our waffle sticks there and our mini pancakes that we feature, and we really see it as a brand extension and a way to community build. And so we opened that about a year ago. So we started with the baking mixes, and this was kind of like an organic thing that happened with the journey of building our company. So when we launched it, it was really cool because my parents, like they officially understood what I was doing. My parents were immigrants, so they always thought that a business is like a storefront, right, or something like that. And so it was really cool to see them kind of light up and be like, wow, Bella's actually, this is a legit thing. She's not just selling things online, kind of sketchy. So it was really cool just opening that up, showcasing our products, but also then attracting like this amazing consumer base that is looking for what we're looking for. And it's like, it's niche, but then our branding and our messaging is very inclusive and welcoming, so we get a lot of people from all different walks of life, and so it's been a really beautiful and grueling journey at times, but definitely helped us connect with our consumer even more.
Love it. Be sure to check her out down on the Nicollet Mall. Support the cause. Also a finalist for the Minnesota Cup food division. Congrats on all the progress, Bella.
Thank you. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah. All right, now let's mash the two together. We got the big launch. We have something starting in the opposite, 400 square foot apartment. Brittany, if you could share a little bit about your journey on Good Measure.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Good Measure. For us, it all started when our co-founders met a little girl named Mia. And Mia's mom and dad had to measure and research everything that she ate. And it was really scary for their family. And it really sparked something in us that we need to help people. There are 50 million people that are caring about blood sugar in America right now, and that number is growing every day. And we wanted to do something to make eating, snacking, a little bit less anxiety-ridden. And so that inspired Good Measure and our pursuit of being the #1 blood sugar-friendly food company. So we have 3 nut butter bars on the market today. Locally, you can find us in Hy-Vee, but we're also in Sam's Club, Kroger, Meijer. We're on our D2C site and Amazon. And we're really excited to launch our second category this fall on e-commerce. And For us, what makes us irresistible, we think, is that we have figured out a way to kind of break it down and make it less scary for people that are monitoring blood sugar. So I'm going to get nerdy for just a second, but when you look at macronutrients, we have a plant-based sweetener, allulose. When you subtract allulose and fiber from your macronutrients, our products are 5 grams glycemic carbs or less. And basically what that means to the rest of us is that when you eat our product, it won't spike your blood sugar. And so now we're solving a big problem for millions of people out there. And our team operates within the venture studio G-Works, which is basically a startup incubator of General Mills. And General Mills started this program to basically solve big consumer problems with food. And we have 9 teams that are cranking on big problems focused on wellness and consumer ease. And what I would say about the Good Measure team is that we have this inspired group of phenomenal people that are pursuing their passion of metabolic health and a career at General Mills at the same time. And we chose this. And what I would say is unique is that we care a lot about our investors, and our investors are a passionate group of people that report to the CEO of General Mills. And so for anyone here that has pitched for funding, you know what goes into that process, and you know what a daunting process that is. Imagine doing that to people that run General Mills. And so while we have a slightly unique startup experience, I will say that parts of it feel really darn scary and authentic at times.
I will say pitching to me is not as scary, I hope. So, but Brittany, tell us a little bit more about that. You mentioned that a couple times when you're about the consumer problem, right? Around how deep it is. Could you talk us through any anecdotes that you have or any of the things that you discovered along that journey of solving that problem?
Yeah, something that makes us really unique is that we have been working to formulate our products with nutritionists and dietitians. And the reason that we took that route is because we know that that was a path to our target consumer. And we needed someone with credibility that are talking to people that care about blood sugar every single day. And so by talking to these individuals, they're really helping us open up to our target audience. And beyond that, there's a lot of people that are starting to tune into this metabolic health, and a lot of people that care about sugar and carbs and other things. And so, what we're finding is that the consumers that we're finding are so appreciative. And everyone here probably has a name. Maybe you have a pet name for the people that are your target. We call them our evangelists. And to us, the most important thing, several of us mentioned it, is we talk to our evangelists. They were the OGs of our fan club, and we love to use them for everything from category market research, category expansion, to just checking in and making sure that we're still hitting the mark for them.
Love it. And so that's been a big part of your journey to make it irresistible. Could you tell us a little bit about, the problem was one thing to solve, and there's vectors, the functional things like the allulose. Tell us about all the other things that you're doing to make it irresistible to consumers.
Yeah, so I mentioned where you can find us. I think a lot of people in this room might be able to relate to the fact of, getting that pull, getting that distribution can be really challenging. And so we are really focused on education to our target audience on our D2C site. And we have found that to be really effective. Several people have mentioned the role that, D2C or e-commerce can play. And that's one thing that we continue to go back to is we want to lead with education. That's why that biowearables company, Levels Health, really is a mentor brand to us. Other ways that we're staying irresistible are paying attention to the signs around us. How do we continue to solve a problem for more and more people? Again, so expanding that opportunity area further.
Very cool. D2C is such a cool leveled playing field now, as opposed to previously when you could only get into a storefront if you're a big retailer. You can create virtual clusters all over the United States. So then you don't need any scale in any single geo. It's a huge level playing field out there for all you startups. All right, Matt, take us home with the last one here. So Matt has probably seen more innovation projects than anybody I know. So could you share maybe some stories from one of your favorites?
Yeah, so I think, I know, I'm going to talk about Old El Paso tortilla pockets. So this was a product that we launched in Europe a little while back. It's in the States now. And I guess I'll preface it and say, with the phrase, the idea that a good idea has many parents and a bad idea is an orphan, like, this one had a lot of parents, right? Because well, one, it's a great idea, but also, we're a large company. So our group was a participant in it, but it was the Old El Paso team that, like, did all the good stuff. The product itself, it's basically like a handheld tortilla. Picture like a waffle cone, like a waffle ice cream cone, but just made out of a tortilla. Anytime a group comes to work with us, we follow a similar type of approach. It's called the I3 approach. Basically, we immerse, right? So we get really smart on a topic. We know that there's a ton of information out there. We know that there's a lot of people that are smarter than us that have basically built up some knowledge around this. So we try and get really smart. We interact as much as possible, building that deep empathy, taking the people who are trying to, like, solve the problem and put them in contact with the people that actually have the problem, as opposed to working in our little isolated spaces. And then we say, only at that point have you earned the right to try and come up with ideas. Otherwise, you're just throwing stuff at a wall and trying to figure things out that people probably don't need solutions for. I think of it a lot like pointillism. Like, you have all these little dots, and you have to figure out how to take all these little dots and aggregate them into something that's actually, like, meaningful to people. So like a Seurat painting or something like that. So with this one, Old El Paso came to us, said, hey, we have some really good tortillas. We've done these fun things. We've done these boats. Like, those are really cool. People like them. We want to figure out what to do next. Like, what can we do next when it comes to, like, a tortilla? And so, we go through the process, we do all the emergent stuff, we dig into the data, all the boring things, the literature search, the trends and things like that. But, like, some of the cool things that I think that we do, at least with this one, we do a lot of trend trekking, right? And trend trekking can be simple and basic. It can be in your town. It can be, in this case, it was a global project, so we were all over. So, if you think about, people who consume products like Old El Paso, Mexican food, Tex-Mex food, it's very different in Houston than it is in Paris, France, right? You go to Houston, and the hot sauce aisle is the same size as the cereal aisle in most places. You go to France, and all of world foods is like one 6-foot section, of which 2 shelves are Mexican food. So it's a very different situation. So understand what's kind of the culture's like, looking for the commonalities and the threads that connect in between. A lot of different like store walks and things like a lot of people get trapped in the idea of, like, your product in isolation, and you don't think about the ecosystem that it lives in when it's out in the environment. And so going into places and, like, okay, if this is going to be on the shelf somewhere, like, what are some of the conventions of that category, right? Like, what do things look like? And am I going to try and disrupt that, or am I going to try and adhere to it, right? Like, if you're here in Minnesota and you're buying milk and you see blue, you're probably thinking 2%, right? Do you want to be the one who tries to do something different, or do you want to be the one that, follows that, because there's pluses and minuses to both? So, we go. A
great example of this is, I was just talking to Joanna Hargis about it. There's almost no billion-dollar brands in frozen food that don't have a singular color block of a primary color, either blue, yellow, red. Hot Pockets, Marie Callender's, all those Stofers, because it's so hard to shop within the frozen aisle because of the screens. So the category conventions, the context, so important. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Matt. So the big part of, like, the immersion is, again, you're eating things, you're experiencing things, you're learning from people that are out there. So that's kind of like the first part. And we learned things with the tortilla pocket, like, right? Like, if you go around, like, I talk about, like, trend trekking, you go and eat a bunch of things, and you start to see things like commonalities. You're in Paris, and you see how they fold a crepe. And if you've ever had a crepe, it's kind of circular, and then they fold it, and they fold it again, and it's kind of triangular, and that sticks somewhere in your brain, somewhere back there. You go to the UK, and you see fish and chips, and what do? They put them in, like, the cone, and now it's the fake newspaper. Back it used to be the real newspaper. But you start to, and all these little things, you start to collect these bits of information, and some is, we call it TBU, true but useless, right? Like, you're collecting lots of stuff, and you don't know exactly what it means quite in the beginning, but ultimately you hope that you can bring it together. For the interaction part, we talk to a lot of people.
right? We go into people's homes, we hang out with them, we make dinner with them. It's not just kind of like a 1-hour conversation over Zoom. Like, if you want to understand, if you can enter the breakfast market in China, you should really understand what breakfast is like in China, and how are you going to understand that unless you have people located in there eating breakfast with people. Spoiler alert, parents just want their kids to be full when they leave the door, give them an egg. It's pretty good. So again, deep ethnography, empathy. We were doing one with this woman in Paris, and we were talking about like what she's making for tonight. She's like, oh, I have some tortillas, so I'm going to make fajitas. I'm like, oh, great. Like, what are you going to do with that? She's like, okay, I'm going to put in a little bit of ham, some bechamel. I'm going to saute up some mushrooms, and then I'm going to do that. We're like, oh, okay. And what are you making? She's like, fajitas. I'm like, okay, when your husband calls today, what are you going to tell him that you're making for dinner? She's like, fajitas. It's like, what does he think he's going to get? She's like, I don't know, something in a tortilla, right? And so you start to understand the cultural context behind things and like what exactly it is. So you do all that kind of like, again, we're taking these little bits of information, like, okay, like she's all about just kind of like layering these products together. That's kind of like what is doing something for her. And then, we get to the point where like, okay, what do we do with all this? Okay, we've seen things like these cone shapes. We've seen things about layered products. There's this whole category of stuff that are like carriers, right? And I'll use that like bready, carby-ish type things that do different jobs, right? And so we started thinking, okay, like what are the different jobs of carriers, right? And we came up with 4, all right? There's the sauce mop, okay? Sauce mop, you got a piece of white bread, you wipe up some gravy, you got some naan, you do that. There's a flavor sponge, okay? Flavor sponge, think about like an English muffin, you put some butter on the top, soaks it all in.
Matt, you're not marketing, are you, I hope?
No. There is, the terminology is all internal. Yeah. All right, so we got sauce mop, we got flavor sponge.
Flavor sponge.
Meal bundler. Okay, meal bundler, you think you put something between 2 pieces of bread, you wrap things in tortilla, you bundle a meal. And then there's the edible shovel, right? Think about like cheese on a cracker, stuff on a pizza crust. And we're like, all right, we got these 4 things that our carrier could do. Like, what do we want to do? I'm like, well, typically a tortilla is kind of like a bundler, a meal bundler, right? Brings things together. So then we're starting like, okay, let's take all the information we have and let's try and figure out like how we can make this new type of bundler. And you try all these different things and shapes and you come up with ideas. And ultimately we came up with this thing with like the cone, right? And it came from a lot of different parts, right? The cone from like when we did the Tran trek, talking to parents where they were like, oh, I hate it when my kid has this tortilla and then they go to eat it and all the stuff falls out the bottom. There was one mom that actually like would come up with these like little clips. She would use chip clips and kind of put it on the end to like basically keep the stuff. Again, kind of like you put that in the back of your head. And then you start to think about like, okay, well if we do a cone, what are all the potential like issues with it, right? Because you have a cone. Well, how are they going to do it? Are they going to create layers, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because you're going to fill, you're going to put your meat in, you're going to put something else. Is that okay or is it not? Are they going to lay it on the side or are they going to try and like create layers that way so you get the perfect bite? And that's when you start to kind of like do the rough prototyping and all that type of stuff. You put something that's just a folded piece of paper in someone's hand and you put like little confetti and things in there and you're like, how do you feel about this? And they're like, oh yeah, I would totally build it this way. Or like, oh no, I would take it, put it all together in a bowl, mix it up, and then shove it in there. That way I get the perfect bite with each one. So these were like the little dots, the little bits of information that we would continuously pull throughout this approach that ultimately led to the idea of the tortilla pocket.
Very cool. Very cool. You mentioned a couple of tools in there. We'll just have to keep it to one question so we can open up to the audience.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a couple of tools in there. How do you know when to use what type of tool when? So you mentioned rough prototyping. You mentioned ethnography research. You mentioned some of those agile type loops that you were doing.
I mean, a lot of it is, what is the level of fidelity you need at the time in order to answer the question you're trying to solve, right? Like, what is it? Because General Mills, like, we can overcrank it like nobody's business, right? Like, we have resources, we have times. Yes, we have deadlines, but if you really want to, there's not a lot that's going to stop you from like working for a good amount of time on something without understanding like what's the question you're trying to solve. So if the thing you're trying to solve is, does a cone make sense? get a bunch of people together, make a paper cone, have fake like little paper things and say, all right, try this, see what you think. Because what's the point of like making a tortilla, trying to crimp it, see if it leaks, all that kind of stuff, when really you just want to see, does a cone even matter to people? So I'd say scoping the problem, again, like figuring out what is that problem you're trying to answer in that moment and doing the least amount of work necessary in order to answer that question and move on to the next one.
Awesome, awesome. And I think those ideas are still up for grabs. Flavor sponge, edible shovel, all those if anybody wants to start a business. All right, so we have some time for some questions out here. Does anybody want to ask our panel anything? Go for it.
Yeah, this is for Bella. Any of you guys can answer, but I assume General Mills will have an easier answer to this than she would. When you went about establishing and determining your customer profile or demand.
Can you say that again on the mic so the virtual audience can hear you?
Sure. All right. This question's for Bella. When you went about starting up Coconut Whisk and identifying customer profiles and figuring out who's really going to have a demand for your product based off of your own insight, how did as a small company did you go about truly determining the size and scope of that, with or without true data, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so the question was like figuring out the market, the target market essentially. Yeah, honestly, in the beginning, it was just like looking around my college community and like who I was surrounding myself with, and they're like, so public health, there was a lot of people who were like vegetarian and who were gluten-free or who were really like health conscious, and just feeling like, oh yeah, this is a good market, like people are out here like vegetarians and stuff, and didn't really do a lot of data digging or a whole big business plan or too much research. It was like, like 4 years ago, I felt like it was still a niche community, but it's still there, and it was really passionate, and I really loved that space. And now, as it's getting more mainstream, obviously, the target market's bigger, and that's when we're currently fundraising. So that was when we went back to the drawing board and did the actual data digging and all that stuff. So
I think that's such a powerful message, though. As an entrepreneur, your instincts, your intuition are so much to get you started, right? And then you can figure stuff out along the way. But getting started, a lot of times, so tough. Yeah.
Yes, intuition. That was the thing. I was like, I feel like this is, it's going to be something. And so just like leaning into that, yes.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My question could be answered by all of you probably, but I'm wondering, does multiple SKUs matter for food companies?
So I can answer from
shelf presence.
I can answer from an investor perspective. I think there's a lot of times when you see a lot of startups in a consumer products world where they get their business to a certain size in a certain category, and they're like, oh, I need to, the benchmark for VC a lot of times, a little bit less in food is triple, double, right? In terms of your revenue growth. And that's really aggressive. We try to go to a little bit closer to like 50% year over year for consumer product. And they start tapping out and they start doing CADX, right? And a category expansion, meaning going to other aisles, other places. I think keeping it within one aisle is a much more favorable model for a strategic investor or any sort of exit. Mostly because like the portfolio gets super complicated. You need like product managers that are experts in so many different fields. There's so many less efficiencies when you start building your shoulders too wide. You might be able to get away with that for a little bit, but over the long haul, it's a little bit less favorable. I think the most important thing is to make sure that you get your core and you stick it, and you make sure that that thing is irresistible.
Can I just maybe add some comments to that? For the way I think about it is trying to make sure you're balancing the presence that you have with the number of SKUs that you have, but also making sure you're not splitting turns. Mm-hmm. So that, the main, measure of success is going to be how quickly your product turns, and if you have too many SKUs, you can dilute that. I will say, just to your point, like on we launched that product. It was a success. the first thing we did was, okay, let's flank it. Let's do wheat desserts. Let's do triple layered, and there was still like 90% of America that didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
And so we distracted ourselves from the real job to be had, which was drive distribution, drive awareness, drive trial on a compelling product offering. So there's pros and cons.
Yep.
What I would just add is also being really focused on the strategic why you're in the business that you are in. I would say for good measure, we want anyone to join us that wants to join this blood sugar friendly movement. In fact, we even had a big debate, do we try to trademark that? And we said, absolutely not. We want to start this movement like where gluten-free must have started, and we want to create this ecosystem. And so it's hard to do that with one product line. We're not sure how many product lines we should do. We have a theory that it's 5 or less, and we would like others to join us in this journey, and not necessarily just in food. So I would say if you get focused on your why, then you might that might start to inform your strategy on CADX.
We are just about out of time here, so we're just going to close it with one round robin here. Any parting advice in a tweet around how to make an irresistible consumer product? Start with you, Joe, and we'll work our way
That
back
starts
down.
with a hashtag, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hashtag love the problem.
Hashtag love the problem. All right. Wow, so trendy.
Ooh, can I counter that?
Okay.
I'm going to counter that with don't ignore joy. So a lot of us are really kind of like interested in the problem and solving the problem, but joy has so much, like you think about like Ben and Jerry's, their core product, like what problem is that solving, right? Like I don't have a core of something in the middle of my like container of yogurt, but they're concentrating the good stuff. They're giving you more of what you love. So the problem is important. The category of ice cream solved a problem, but like what made that thing special was the joy that it delivers.
Right? Someone might think the powder on Cheetos might be a problem, right? Yeah.
It's joy because it's a ritual, because it's an indication of flavor, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Thell.
That was a long tweet. I would say be obsessed with your consumer, and the problem doesn't get in your way, it is the way. So put on that problem-solving hat.
Ooh, wow. I need an inspirational poster with that.
Yes, yes.
Brittany, close us out.
I would say hashtag do it for your future self.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Well, let's give it up for our illustrious panel here. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you guys have any questions or any follow-ups, we'll be around, and my email address is johnny.tran, johnny@genmills.com. I'll take a chat. Happy to kick it around with anybody. We are passionate about the startup community. We are passionate about our Minneapolis, Minnesota community, so feel free to reach out if you ever need anything, okay? All right, gang, take care.